Campaigns for president, former energy secretary, former governor Rick Perry, and former governor Arkansas, different state, Mike Huckabee. Governor Huckabee, end with you. I begin with you. What do you expect from Ron DeSantis? Because clearly the $15 million spent by Donald Trump's PAC attacking DeSantis with ads has probably hurt him in the polls. How does he counterpunch here?
I think he'd be real smart to not try to counterpunch a whole lot. Those who counterpunch Donald Trump usually regret doing it because he's one of those fellows that if you get in a fight with him, he enjoys it. And the person who picks the fight with Donald Trump, after a few days will say, enough, enough. Ask Marco Rubio about that. And then those few days pass, Donald Trump's still enjoying the fight. So Ron DeSantis would be wise just to run his own campaign, do his thing, and see if he catches fire. It's a long, hard slog. I know Rick Perry would join me in saying we got to look at the calendar. Folks, we're a year and a half away from the election, and we're about 8 months away from the first caucuses and primaries. There's a lot of road between here and the first vote being cast.
Well, Governor Perry, I don't really disagree with Governor Huckabee. And if Ron DeSantis chooses not to attack Donald Trump but attacks others in the race, you have what happened in 2016 where everybody beats themselves up and never beats up Donald Trump. And again, that bodes well for Trump and bad for anyone who wants to challenge him. And Trump is the top % leader right now. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, but my advice is you just try to be positive. You lay out your vision for America. We're looking for a happy warrior, I think, again, kind of one of those Ronald Reagan moments in America, morning in America, as a matter of fact. So my advice is, if you want to spend your time trying to beat up on Donald Trump, you're going down a road that's already been traveled a substantial amount. So, take your time. As Governor Huckabee said, there is no rush here. It's a long time until the spring of or next spring. So there's a lot of time for whether it's Governor DeSantis or it's Tim Scott or if it's Vivek. I mean, there may be some people get into this that haven't even shown up yet. So who knows? There's a long time, a lot of things to go on. But here's what's important. Let's talk about the future of America. Let's really lay out a positive vision and a positive future for this country. That's what Americans, I think, are looking for. We're tired of the midnight in America that the Biden administration has given us.
We were talking a little bit about memory lane. Let's take a trip. Just like in 2016, we all remember what a treat that was. Gentlemen, listen to this.
This is a tough business to run for president.
I know you're a tough guy, Jeb.
And we need to have a leader that is real tough. You're never going to be president of the United States by insulting your way to the presidency.
Let's see. I'm at 42 and you're at 3. So far I'm doing better.
Doesn't matter.
So far I'm doing better. You started off over here, Jeb. You're moving over further and further. Pretty soon you're going to be off the end.
Marco has more of an allegiance to Chuck Schumer and to the liberals than he does to conservative policy.
Is there anyone on stage, and can I see hands, who is unwilling tonight to pledge your support to the eventual nominee of the Republican Party and pledge to not run an independent campaign against that person? Again, we're looking for you to raise your hand now. Raise your hand now if you won't make that pledge tonight. Mr. Trump.
Donald, is great at the one-liners. But he's a chaos candidate, and he'd be a chaos president.
Jeb doesn't really believe I'm unhinged. He said that very simply because he has failed in this campaign. It's been a total disaster. Nobody cares. And frankly, I'm the most solid person up here.
If I'm elected president, we will secure the border. We will triple the Border Patrol. We will build a wall that works, and I'll get Donald Trump to pay for it.
I'll build it.
By the way, DeSantis, Ron, governor of Florida, is on Twitter at the moment. He has also tweeted out a video announcing his candidacy for the Republican nomination for president. But gentlemen, who wants it? It was a bar fight that then bled out into the parking lot. But once the sun came up, it was unity in the Republican Party. Is it going to happen again?
Yeah, it's always the way that's just going to work. And quite frankly, watching that video of all those reminders of that time in 2016, I think Rick and I both decided, heck, we may jump back in this thing too. We missed that fun.
Well, you come and announce those campaigns with us first, Governor Huckabee. But you know what? I think you both know, we've all ran for office, and metal does sharpen metal. You get better candidates when you have tough races like this. Yeah. But I wonder if we're going to have a race in 2024, like in 26, where someone was called a liar in Little, someone else called Little. A lot of names were called. Is that going to be the theme of this primary race, do you think?
Yeah, I hope not. I mean, I hope, again, that our candidates understand Americans want to have a positive vision of the future. They're again, I'm going to use that term, a happy warrior. They're looking for somebody that will fight for them and do it in a respectful, thoughtful way. And speaking of that, hey, Governor Huckabee, I saw another Governor Huckabee day before yesterday in Austin, Texas, with the Republican Governors Association. You got a rock star on your hands right there, my friend. You did a wonderful job of raising that young lady, and she is going to make a fabulous governor, and who knows where she may end up one of these days.
And she's better looking than you too, Governor Huckabee. Takes after a month.
I don't even argue that point with you, and quite frankly, I hope she is a better governor. I think she's on her way to doing it, and her mother did a very good job of raising her. I'll give her credit.
Governor, before we move, there's something else we want to talk about. But Governor Perry, you haven't endorsed anybody yet, have you?
Well, a couple of weeks ago, I said, you know what, I may get back into this thing, and the best place for a guy like that to be is for me.
So have you made up your mind yet?
I have not, and I haven't endorsed anyone either. So, you know, I'm taking my time. I'm watching. We got a lot of time. We haven't seen all of the players yet, so let's just, you know, be patient, be thoughtful, be kind, and look forward.
And Governor Huckabee, you're behind President Trump.
I am, and in part because the 4 years that he was president, he got the things done that we wanted him to get done, and he did it with extraordinary headwinds. I also believe that with all this stuff that's been thrown at him, if we allow the Democrats and the press to take down a candidate based on lies, based on collusion between government agencies and the press, then we're going to have a whole lot more of it. So, look, I realize as a doctor, his bedside manner sometimes leaves something to be desired, but in the operating room, there's none better.
Gentlemen, before we go, I mean, I think a lot of us, we talked about the polling numbers before we came in and to your segment. Donald Trump is at, you know, mid-50s. Ron DeSantis is at 20. Are you looking at the poll numbers this early? Are you looking at how much candidates raise? What can our viewers look to go who's getting traction and who's not? What are the telltale signs?
Well, I don't think any doubt about, you know, when you raise $200 million that you're a legit candidate, and that's just at the start. So, you know, I think Governor DeSantis, obviously a serious candidate and an individual. Now, let's face it, he's not as well known as President Trump. And I think Governor Huckabee's spot on about all the policies and where we found ourselves under the Trump administration over the course of those 4 years. And he's maxed out from the standpoint of his name ID. People know him. I suspect the president can raise an unlimited amount of money as well. So to me, that's the real defining moment is, can they raise enough money to go out and to conduct a effort to make sure that the public hears what they're talking about, their vision of the future. So, you know, at this particular point in time, and again, this is early in the process I know people say, oh my gosh, it's already started, it's on. This is still really early in the process. There's a lot of things that can happen. I'm reminded on a regular basis, as in 2011, I shot up to the top, and it was, you know, 3 of the most magnificent hours of my life. That's about how long I stayed at the top. But the point is, there's a lot can happen out there. A lot should happen. Let's talk about the future. See the person who's laying out the view of what Americans want to hear from the next president of the United States.
Gentlemen, Thank you so much, Governors Rick Perry and Mike Huckabee.